นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนัมมัสสามิ And blessings. Good evening. This weekend we've been remembering Magha Puja. It's the full moon day in February. It's a day in the life of the Buddha when a very special event happened. 1,250 arahants, fully enlightened beings, came together unannounced at the monastery he was staying at, the Veluvanarama. And it became the occasion he gave a teaching, which is very well known, the Ovada Patimokkha. So the way we commemorate that occasion here in the monastery is with a all-night meditation session. So last night, many people came together and meditated and chanted and listened to Dhamma teachings. And then we had a procession, supposed to be candlelit, but because here is bushfire season, we're not supposed to light flames outdoors. We use electric candles, which have the added fun that you can choose a color from the rainbow, a candle of your choice, a color of your choice. And we go in a procession around the Buddha statue, around the hall, as part of that evening program. And then spend the rest of the night meditating, sitting, walking meditation. At midnight, we chanted the Paritta chants, verses of protection, and sitting, walking meditation again until morning meditation at 4 a.m. And then we ended just before 5. And some people went home, some people had a rest. But that's the way Ajahn Chah, our teacher, practiced on Magha Puja. It was a day he would get the monks and lay people to come together and practice the Dhamma and practice more than usual. That's you might say, a Buddhist way of celebrating. Some people see celebrations as, excuse me, some people see celebrations as a time not to do anything, party, eat, drink, be merry. Buddhist celebration in Ajahn Chah's book was meditate and listen to Dhamma and chant and do it more than usual. So especially on these important days such as Magha Puja, Visakha Puja, Asalaha Puja, the beginning of the rains retreat, and so on, to meet and practice what we call Patipati Puja, to worship the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha through the practice, as opposed to just through making offerings and maybe declaring your faith in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, which is a good starting point, but actually putting your effort and energy into the practice in a more wholehearted or full-on way, perhaps. So many people did that. They stayed up all night. So some of you, I'm not sure if any of you watching did that, but if you did, then Anumodana, to you, and you're probably feeling tired now, but maybe it's tiredness of body that comes about through putting forth effort in the practice. So it's a kind of tiredness that you can accommodate and cope with because you know it comes from doing something good. And we need to do good on these occasions, or use these occasions to do good for ourselves, for others. And we need that in life because, of course, a lot of the time we're putting forth energy for things like work, or even for our entertainment and pleasure through travel and whatever, buying things. As we know, going shopping requires a lot of energy. Blow a lot of energy when you're in the shopping mall. We put a lot of energy into these more mundane activities, which are not necessarily even so good for us, because they're very distracting and maybe arouse our craving and attachment. So we need to counter that by sometimes putting forth effort into things like staying up all night meditating, remembering the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, listening to Dhamma, trying to improve our level of mindfulness and samadhi. For sure, you'll gain a lot of patience, and one of those verses from the Awada Patimokkha, the teaching that we remember on Marga Puja, is that patient endurance is the highest discipline. And if you're going to stay up meditating all night, you certainly need patience and endurance, because you have many thoughts come up that may be resisting the whole thing, saying, why am I doing this? I want to go and sleep. What's the point of this? Maybe you have aversion, so you have some pain in your body or feelings of tiredness. They may stimulate some irritation, annoyance, aversion. Maybe the person sitting next to you is making a noise or snoring or something. Or maybe people have aversion for the teacher. So in that case, it might be me. They say, oh, why is Ajahn Kalyano making us stay up all night? Well, some people are just struggling. Probably everyone at some point would be struggling with some sleepiness, because if you stay up meditating all night, you become sleepy from time to time, or even for much of the time. But the idea is to bring up the effort and the mindfulness to deal with that, to see if you can get beyond your sleepiness. And people do. Many people have little breakthroughs, and they're sleepy for a while, and then through their efforts, they wake themselves up by putting mindfulness onto the breathing or another object of Dhamma, reflecting on the Dhamma perhaps, walking meditation outside. Last night, the moon was very beautiful, and there was no wind. Starting to be autumn here, so quite cool at night, but very beautiful for doing walking meditation. So if you do some walking meditation, you can quickly brighten your mind. You look at the moon, brighten your mind like looking at the radiant moon. Maybe bring some of that radiance into your mind, into your heart, and you wake yourself up. Some people even tried the Ajahn Chah special technique for sleepiness, which is to walk meditation backwards. Because when you walk backwards, you don't fall asleep because you're worried that you're going to trip over or bump into something. So you should try that if you have a problem with sleepiness. So people gain many things doing these all-night meditations. They gain patience, they learn how to summon up extra energy and effort. And of course, the aim is to gain more mindfulness by practicing with your meditation object and reflecting on the Dhamma, also to gain wisdom and experience in training your mind. Of course, it was totally voluntary, and that's what Dhamma practice is. It's something you do voluntarily. Nobody forces you. Even though they may say, oh, why did Ajahn Kalyano make us do this all-night meditation? Well, I didn't. I'm just following my teacher, Ajahn Chah. And it's an entirely voluntary thing. You choose to do it or not. Nobody makes you do it. But that has a different flavor, doesn't it? You can't complain so much, and the tiredness you feel, you can accept maybe more easily. It's different when you have to do a job of work because you have to earn some money to pay your bills. That's a different kind of feeling, isn't it? You react differently to that. But when it's something voluntarily that you've undertaken and it's good, so for a good purpose, for furthering your progress in the path of practice, for the end of suffering, and what better goal is there in life than that? Then people tend to be willing to put up with a little bit of tiredness, restlessness, and so on. One of the most common things people say about these all-night meditation sessions is, it was easier than I thought. People, they often are a little bit nervous before, but if they've never done it before, they're thinking, can I really do it? What will I do? How will I cope? But most people find it's actually easier than they thought. And that's partly because as human beings, when we face a challenge, we tend to think of every difficulty, every possibility before we've done it. So already we put ourselves at a disadvantage in a way, because we overthink, we think too much, and maybe undermine some of our own effort by worrying or being anxious. How will I do it? Can I do it? What will happen? So then your mind is not in the best state when you start. But as you do it, you perhaps quickly realize that it was better than you thought, or more doable, more realizable than you thought. And then you may settle down, and your energy and your faith and your confidence in the practice comes up. People have their favorite parts of these practices. So sometimes it's the sitting, sometimes the walking, sometimes chanting. We do 3 different sessions of chanting, do evening chanting, then Paritta chanting at midnight, and then the morning chanting at 4 a.m. So some people find the chanting is very good because it has meaning for them and it brings up effort, energy again. So it's a kind of meditation. And some people even find that it has a very therapeutic effect on the mind and the body. One person yesterday was saying they're feeling ill, but after the Paritta chanting at midnight, these feelings of illness disappeared. And it's a very common result people experience when they either listen to Paritta chanting or do it themselves, because they have faith in the Buddha. And the Paritta chants, they're coming from suttas, largely from the word of the Buddha, not entirely, but mostly from the words of the Buddha. There's a very great feeling that this is a link right back to the Buddha, to the arahants and the devas who look after the Buddhist religion. People find that arouses a lot of faith and energy in their practice, and that has a good effect on their physical well-being as well. So some people find that it helps them to shake off their drowsiness, their tiredness. Sometimes it helps them to deal with pain in their body. They've been sitting for a long time, perhaps. And occasionally even people who have illness or symptoms of illness can find that those symptoms subside from the Paritta chanting. So somebody said their illness seemed to disappear. It can be headaches, colds and flu, perhaps not serious illness, but at least kind of minor ailments and various symptoms can disappear through chanting the Parittas. And the same with meditation itself. Although you put forth a lot of physical energy, sometimes the extra effort you're making brings up more continuous mindfulness, even states of samadhi. Your mind brightens as the distractions disappear, as you overcome sleepiness, at least for some of the night. And you find that your mind improves, your state of mind improves. People find that, things that were bothering them disappear through the effort they put into the practice. Worries, concerns about some aspect of their life, anguish that they've been holding on to, desires that were bothering them. Through this effort people make, many of these things start to fade away before their very eyes. So they can actually see themselves letting go of different troublesome states of mind, or at least developing a new attitude towards things. This is probably why our teacher Ajahn Chah encouraged us to do these kinds of practice. If you can do it, you're available, you're healthy enough, then try it sometimes, and you might be pleasantly surprised. Most people can put forth that kind of effort for more worldly reasons. They can travel overnight sometimes, on a plane or in a car, on a bus, because they want to go somewhere. So why can't we meditate all night? If you want to go to Nibbana, then why can't you meditate all night? People can work night shifts, so why can't we meditate on a night shift? People who have to sit exams or interviews and things, they can do preparation all night sometimes. Why can't we do that in our meditation practice? At least try. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, and some people may find it just too difficult, but at least try it. If you've never tried something, you never know. So it's a very good practice to kind of energize you, wake you up a bit, and try something new. And I think most people appreciate that, the ones who were on the retreat last night. So the Buddha, in that teaching, Niyawada Patimokkha, he encouraged us to put forth effort, to train, to practice, to be patient. And that's something you have to keep learning in life, isn't it? How to be patient with difficult, challenging states of mind. Not just if you're meditating late at night, but at any time in your life, you'll find there'll be what we call negative mind states, mental defilements rooted in some form of greed or anger or delusion coming up. And once you realize that, maybe you have to be very patient with them. What we tend to do is run away from anything that's not particularly to our liking that comes up in our mind, any thought, any emotion, feeling. We just want to get rid of it or run away from it. But we have to learn how to be patient so that we can really learn a good lesson from states of stress, suffering, negativity. If you keep running away, well, you'll never learn, when you never get beyond them. So again, part of meditation is learning to face up to things and look more closely at what's going on with more mindfulness, and developing our ability to investigate, to develop insight. When you understand something, it's not such a problem, because you gain some experience at watching the mind that is not peaceful, the greed, the anger, the worry, the jealousy, the sleepiness. It becomes less of a problem through understanding, through actually trying to establish mindfulness and learn from that state of mind, that experience. Nowadays, we have so many things to distract us that even when you meditate, it's so tempting just to listen to a Dhamma talk or, finish quickly because you've got something else to do. We have to learn a bit of discipline. And this is what the Buddha was encouraging in this teaching, Awada Patimokkha. Right? Develop the patience, develop the effort, so that you can watch your mind, so that you can understand suffering and how it arises and how it passes away. You actually see something through by being patient with it. Maybe you observe how a memory triggers a particular reaction in your mind. It could be some form of greed and desire. When if your character is one, you particularly go for things that are attractive, beautiful, desirable to you. You think of something that you've seen or some past experience, and it will trigger a whole set of mind states, what we call mental proliferation, thinking and thinking about that thing. But if you're meditating, you could undertake just to watch that rather than indulge it and follow it. Just watch. Ask yourself, how long is this going to last? Or what's so beautiful about the thing that you become attracted to? Maybe ask yourself, is there anything that is not attractive about this thing that I'm attracted to? So the obvious one is the physical body, the human body. If you're thinking of someone you like, the beautiful image of that person, ask yourself, is it all beautiful as your mind is trying to fool you into believing? The Buddha compared the human body to a sealed bag of skin filled with unattractive things. So even the most attractive, good-looking person has that aspect, that side to them. And you can bring that up to help challenge the obsession or the thinking that you're getting caught into when you have desire or lust. It will help you to just see it from a different angle and maybe let go. See it to the point where your lust subsides, fades away. You think, maybe I don't really need that. Or it could be any kind of material object that your mind is sort of obsessed with or desirous of. And just watch it and watch your mind becoming obsessed and then question that. How good is that thing you really want? How long will it last? How much pleasure will you get? Will you get pleasure from that thing all the time, or will it just be a passing mood that will change? This is part of meditation, is investigation and watching and learning from your experience. So at first, desire is very powerful, and you might feel that it's overwhelming. There's nothing you can do about it. But as you establish mindfulness, look and learn from it. You may find that after a while that desire fades away, and you can say, oh, it's impermanent. It's gone during the course of your meditation. And you're seeing suffering arise and suffering pass away right before your very eyes. The same with aversion. Maybe something triggers that in your mind as you're meditating. Probably the most common one is just painful feelings in the body. Nobody likes pain, so we tend to react with irritation, aversion. We wriggle, our mind gets agitated. But if you're patient enough, just sit through it, watch the agitation if you can. Ask yourself, how long will it last? Whose pain is it anyway? Is this pain really a person? Is it really me? Or is it just a feeling that arises and passes away? And with patience and observation and learning from the experience, you might be able to do that and see the aversion just fades away. You're seeing suffering arising, but then you're also seeing it through till the end of suffering in that moment. And when you put more effort into your practice, it can be like this. You will encounter much stress, suffering, negative, undesirable mind states, they'll come up to bother you. But your aim is to establish the mindfulness, keep patient with it, be patient with it, and learn from it, and learn that to see that on a deeper level, these things are all impermanent. What's impermanent is not self, it's not really you. Even when you do experience some peace in samadhi, which is a good thing, brings with it a sense of well-being, happiness, that's not dependent on anything external. During that period, you have some calm, some peace of mind. Your mind is very self-contained. It doesn't need to go outside of itself to seek or get anything else to be happy at that time. Even when it experiences that, these mental defilements, the attachments, the craving are still around in the background, but they've been temporarily suppressed. It's a bit like when you have a headache and say you take Panadol or something, might temporarily take away the pain, but as the painkiller wears off, then the pain returns. Samadhi is a bit like that. It suppresses the suffering and the kilesas, which has a good purpose to it. It helps you get a nice rest, a certain taste of freedom, peace. But it's not the whole of the path, because these mental states of suffering will re-emerge after you come out of samadhi, or after the samadhi, sort of the factors of samadhi subside. Suffering will re-emerge. And this is one of the key points that the Buddha taught through his own experience, is that you can develop states of samadhi, jhana, even very high and refined states of jhana, but if you don't contemplate the origin of your suffering, the Four Noble Truths, they're not the same as nibbana. They're not going to bring you to nibbana. You need wisdom for nibbana. You have to come out of the samadhi and contemplate attachment. Because attachment and craving, desire, wanting, not wanting, wanting to get rid of, these still affect the mind when you come out of samadhi. So you have to contemplate. And this is the difference between the Buddha and the other teachers of his day. Right? In India, he practiced with the leading meditation masters of India in those days. And he could practice and develop the states of samadhi till he was equal to and then better than them at doing it. And they thought they were enlightened because they could suppress any defilement, any kind of suffering. They could just escape from it by entering samadhi, state of peace. But the Buddha saw, no, this is not nibbana or the highest happiness, because there's still the causes of suffering still affecting the mind. It's just they've gone quiet when the mind is in samadhi. And this is the difference. Maybe it's the well-trained wisdom faculty, the intelligence, the wisdom of the Buddha was so sharp that he picked up on this. It's not nibbana, just entering samadhi. It's not the goal of the practice alone. You have to contemplate and see where craving is arising. So say you do attain a state of peace, which is a very good thing in your meditation. It is something you're aiming for and we encourage. But as you re-emerge from that state of peace, stillness, you have to follow along your own mind as craving re-emerges. But what happens, say you do your all-night sitting, and you might have periods where you're very still and peaceful, and then you come out of that, and then what does the mind do? It starts saying, oh, I want something to eat, or I want to go somewhere and do something, and you start thinking about more ordinary thoughts, and the craving starts to re-emerge. Maybe when you're feeling tired the next day after your all-night sitting, this is something the monks all know, you're feeling tired, so you might feel irritated because you're tired. or you feel sleepy, so it's hard to concentrate, or you have desires that come up really strongly because your mind is now tired from all the effort you put forth before. So it starts looking for distractions, treats, whatever it likes. And this is why the Buddha encourages us to reflect on the impermanent nature of craving and the objects of craving, and to reflect on not self. Because when you come out of samadhi, your mind is still looking for things. It's back to its old ways, its old habits, which can be very frustrating, but it's just truth, isn't it? It's the way things are. So we have to keep establishing mindfulness and reflecting on what's going on. We can still get angry after the samadhi. We can still have lust and desire for things after the samadhi. We can feel bored and attached to the boredom after samadhi. We can seek excitement and entertainment and pleasure after the samadhi. You know, the mind can go back to its old habits quite easily. So we have to contemplate these things, see the impermanence of those objects, see them as not self. Ask yourself, is this really me, mine, myself? You might call this the practice of vipassana. And we practice vipassana best after the samadhi. We all have had that experience. You have a nice moment of blissful stillness of mind, the result of all your effort in the practice, but you can't hold on to it. Your mind starts to fade out of it, come back out of it. And then what happens? You start thinking about this and thinking about that, and gradually all the samadhi disappears. Sometimes just talking to your friend or doing this, doing that. So the Buddha encouraged us to keep contemplating. Feelings are impermanent. They arise, they pass away. So watch that. As the feeling of pain in your body arises, watch how it arises, watch how it changes. Maybe it will pass away too. You can observe that. Pleasure comes up, pleasure also fades away. Different thoughts, thought formations arise and then they pass away. Ideas about you, your life, what you want to be, what you don't want to be, what you don't want, what you're missing, what you're liking, what you're disliking. Observe the changing nature of your mind. You can actually do that best of all when you are coming out of samadhi, but the important thing is to do it. Sometimes we forget. If you've had a nice blissful meditation, then you forget about suffering, you forget about the causes of suffering, and maybe you become a bit dull or lazy to contemplate. This is one of the dangers or the drawbacks of samadhi. It can make you complacent. You stop contemplating. Enjoy the peace, and that's, in a way, that's good, but you also have to turn to contemplate different kinds of desire, the mind of wanting, the mind of not wanting, the mind that's grabbing hold of things, the mind that's pushing away different experiences. Because that's where the origin of suffering is. And this was the Buddha's gift to the world. Not only did he develop samadhi, but he developed right view, right understanding of the way things are. And he shared that with us. So in this Awada Patimokkha, he gave us this very succinct guideline for reflecting on experience. Abandon the unwholesome, cultivate the wholesome, and purify your mind. So the unwholesome means any form of mental state rooted in greed, anger, delusion. Whether it's attachment to samadhi and the bliss of samadhi, or just attachment to the the taste of your favorite food, anything that you attach to with desire, or the desire to get rid of things, the attachment to pain, displeasure, things you don't like, things you don't want in the world that will always come your way. This is what we have to contemplate, where the unwholesome is hiding in our mind. We have to look at it, uproot it, pull it out. The discontent, always wanting more. You want more, you get it, the thing you want, and then you're not satisfied, so then you want more. That's what discontent is. That's what keeps the world running, going, because we get discontent with everything we have, whether it's wealth, power, fame, fortune. Nothing lasts because they're all impermanent. We have to keep looking at that. Abandoning the unwholesome, cultivating the wholesome, or cultivate the happiness of sila, not harming others through your speech, your actions. The happiness of samadhi, bringing your mind to a state of calm with mindfulness. The happiness of wisdom, where you understand the true nature of things as impermanent, as not self. You can't own anything in this world. Nothing really belongs to you. When you can see that, you don't suffer with the world. You know it's not yours anyway. And that's what letting go is, isn't it? You say, oh, it really isn't mine, so I can let it go. When you suffer, it's because you're grasping with that sense, this is me, mine, this belongs to me. Sometimes we can be really foolish. We attach to every negative thought and say, that's my thought, when you don't need to. Just let it go. If you're angry, tell yourself, this is not self. Let it go. Why hold on to anger, which is only making you suffer? It's not self in its essence anyway. You're not a permanently angry entity living in the world. Anger is something that arises and passes away. So it's clearly not you. It's not a self. So you let it go. Same for fear, anxiety, greed, selfishness, jealousy, rage. Let them go. Whatever comes up, let it go until it doesn't come up anymore. Marga Puja is a very good time to practice these and develop this path, following the footsteps of the Buddha, the Arahants in the time of the Buddha, Arahants in this day and age, Rinpoche. Maybe for tonight, I'll give you these teachings, and afterwards there'll be a chance if anyone has any questions. I can do my best to answer them.
Andamayang Dhamma Kataya Sadhu Karang Dadamase Sadhu 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 Anumodami